Well, good day, my friends, and welcome to the Hebraic Living Walking with Messiah broadcast. We're excited to have you here with us today as we explore the rich traditions and teachings of Hebraic living, guiding you on a journey to walk in alignment with your Messiah. Now, whether you're seeking spiritual growth, practical insights, or a deeper connection with your faith, this show is here to inspire and uplift you. Now, in last week's episode, part 3 of our series, AI and End Time Prophecy, we discussed the man of lawlessness and the rise of the anti-Messiah and how he deceives the nations, how he uses signs and wonders, and how artificial intelligence may become the engine of global deception. Now, today, as we enter part 4, of our series, it's going to be entitled, Come Out of Her, My People. This is the episode where everything comes together. The rise of the final Babylonian system, the role of artificial intelligence and global control, and the prophetic call for God's people to separate themselves from the world's system. Now, this is not a message of fear. It is a message of clarity, identity, and hope. The remnant have always been called out before judgment. And in these last days, that call becomes louder than ever. Now, remember to plug in every Tuesday at this same time to see the show live. And you can also view it on demand on the lambnetwork.tv website. Each show is also recorded on the Daily Torah YouTube channel. Welcome to all of our new listeners. And if you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button so you never miss a single episode. And always remember, my friends, to share these messages with your social media friends and family. You never know whose life you're going to affect. Now, if you have your Bible and notepads handy, get them ready. And let's begin our discussion for today. Let's get into it. We have a lot to cover today, so let's go. Let me take myself off the screen because my slides have a lot of information in them. Feel free to take screenshots or pictures. You can share it with your friends and family. It's okay. So today we want to talk about coming out of the Babylonian system, okay? The last 3 parts, we talked about AI and how the illusions and the rise of the man of lawlessness and how he's going to be able to use AI technology to be able to deceive the whole world. But before this happens, God is calling us as the remnant to come out of this Babylonian system. And it's a spiritual system. You know, Babylon is examined as a spiritual, but also a cultural system influencing humanity's beliefs and practices throughout history. You know, like I said before, there's nothing new under the sun. This has been a regurgitated, resurrected entity from back in the ancient days. But now we have AI here in the end times. And we have been investigating the growing role of artificial intelligence and how it shapes society and ties into these prophetic times that we are in right now. And we looked at that from various religious perspectives. We got into the Talmud, even the Zohar, and we did a deep dive into how AI and all these occultic practices, you know, they're embracing AI. They're looking forward to this one world government, all the globalists and the elitists. And we know that as believers, we're not blind to this, but we are called to be the faithful remnant. And if we're not careful, remember what I said last week, Yeshua said that if we are not careful, even the very elect may be deceived by this new technology and these signs and these wonders. I mean, look at what's going on today, my friends. We have people who we thought were aligned with God, with I'm going to say America first mentality, the Make America Great movement, which tries to embrace a Christian-led nation, and we're trying to get away from globalism and get out of the Babylonian system. But what did we find? We have interlopers. We have people who said they were patriotic believers, Christian believers, and they are not. They are anti-Israel. They are anti-Messiah. And they believe that they, in their outfit, their sect is the new Jerusalem, the new Israel, the new church that's going to replace everything. And so we have been finding out that we have people inside our own movement, so to speak, that are actually interlopers. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. And that's how the elect can be very, very deceived, because now we have all these things happening on both sides of our heads, right? Our minds are being bombarded with all these different voices, and we don't know what's true and what's not true. We don't know what's, who's real and who is not real. And we have all these deep fakes and all this misinformation that's coming upon us. And so we have to have a spirit of discernment, and we have to place our focus on identity and the mission of the remnant who remain faithful, that we are called to be separate from this prevailing system. And that may mean coming out all together and isolating ourselves to some spec, where we as the remnant are together, and we will be basically isolated from the rest of the world, even those who are confessing Christians and believers of, supporters of Israel, but they don't follow the Torah. They don't follow Yeshua. Really, they don't follow their Bibles. They don't know the covenants. They don't know the prophecies. And so they make things up, and they have their own doctrines that they follow. And so we may be, as Hebraic rooted, Messianic, end-time believers, be isolated into our own little group. And so we have to be supporting and loving and uplifting one another. So let's look at this final Babylonian system. We have these prophetic events and the convergence. In this episode, we're going to discuss and reveal how prophetic events are converging, signaling the rise of a final Babylonian system in history. And we talked about this artificial intelligence and control, and how artificial intelligence is depicted as a key tool for global control, transforming society in the way governance operates. And then we're going to talk about spiritual discernment and separation, that we as believers, and I'm urging each and every one of you to take your walk seriously, to remain spiritually discerning, distancing yourselves from worldly influences, and to embrace faithfulness amid all this change. We need to come out of this system. Otherwise, we're going to be lured into it, and we're going to end up taking the mark because we feel like we have to survive. And I'm telling you now, you do not have to. If God could feed Elijah and the ravens could send him food when he was fleeing from Jezebel and Ahab, God can send the same to each and every one of us. And he promises to provide a place of safety for each of us if we are remaining faithful to him. So we don't want to go through the fire, because he also says that there will be some who will be refined. So if you are on the fence and you think you can have one foot in the world and one foot in God's kingdom, and then the time comes and you're waffling and you're lukewarm, well, you may have to be refined. And that refinement will be going through the tribulation, because there isn't any rapture that's going to come and whoosh us all away like the church likes to portray. It's not going to happen. There's only one rapture, and that is when Yeshua returns on Yom Teruah, and he's coming down to earth to meet us, and we will meet him in the air on his way down to earth to set up the kingdom, to put the anti-Messiah, the false prophet, Hasatan, into the pit, and to allow us, the first remnant, the first fruits, to be resurrected into those glorious beings that we are preparing to be. So that is the only rapture that's going to happen. So we're going to have to really make sure that we are prepared and ready for what is coming upon this earth. This is the call to hope. I'm giving you right now, my friends, a call to hope. And we want to emphasize clarity and identity, that the message I'm sharing with you today highlights the importance of clarity and a strong sense of identity. Do you know who you are in Messiah? And moving away from fear. You do not have to be fearful about what's going to come upon this earth. The Lord has given us the book. In the book of Revelation and in Daniel and Zechariah, we know what's happening. We know what's coming. So he has given us the book that we can prepare and not be fearful. We are the remnant. We are the beacon of truth. Throughout history, a faithful remnant serves as a beacon of truth and resilience before times of adversity. This happened during the time of the Maccabees. This happened during the time of Esther. There was always a remnant who are true and faithful, who will serve as a resilience before the times of adversity, just as Jeremiah called out to all those in Judah before they were taken into captivity. And those who listened to him were spared. The rest were slaughtered or went into captivity. The same with the Assyrian Empire. There was a call from Obadiah, from Isaiah, from even Ezekiel. And the ones who did not listen went into captivity and were dispersed around the world. Those who listened were preserved. So this is our urgency and hope in the last days. You know, my friends, in challenging times, the call to hope grows more urgent. We need to be urging ourselves, our families, and other individuals to embrace purpose and stand firm in Messiah, in the Torah. Now, this is the final call from heaven. If we turn to Revelation chapter 18, verse 4, what does it say in Revelation 18, verse 4? It says, "Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues." This is the call that God is giving us today, not tomorrow, not yesterday, today. He is calling us to come out. And we're going to go over, what does this mean to come out of her? What does this really mean? Well, at one part, it's a call to separation. We as believers are urged to separate from corrupt influences to avoid sharing in their sins and plagues. This call is both urgent and vital. This message also highlights the importance of spiritual discernment and recognizing divine guidance above worldly temptations. And then we have to have distinct living. This passage emphasizes living distinctively, obeying divine commands, not the worldly commands, and reflecting spiritual values apart from worldly influences. And we know that we need to do this, but sometimes many of us are so allured into what's going on in the world. But I'm telling you, there is never going to be peace upon the earth until Yeshua returns. I just started this board of peace, right? When they say peace, peace, know that sudden destruction is imminent, right? That's what the scriptures say. So even though there's going to be this false peace in the world, know that it's not going to last very, very long. And we have to prepare. It gives us a time and a window of preparation. Now, the Greek word for come out and depart is this exelthate. Exelthate means to come out, to depart, to withdraw, expressing a clear call to separation. It's a verb. And then this meaning of my people, the Hebrew word, the Greek word leos mou, uses covenant language to stress that we belong to God, that we are his people. My friends, this is a divine imperative. This command in Revelation 18, verse 4, is a divine imperative for God's covenant people, and that's us. And it's not merely a suggestion. It is a command to come out of Babylon. So if you are a follower of Yeshua, if you embrace Torah observance, this is the command from God Almighty to come out of Babylon. And we're going to get into it deeper here as we go on. In Revelation verses in chapter 17 and 18, it's a hub. This Babylonian system is a hub of immorality and idolatry. Let's look at it. This global system. We have many, many parts of this system. We have a global economic framework. Babylon symbolizes an interconnected global economy, driving commerce and wealth accumulation across nations and cultures. I'll give you a point. I just tried to wire some money from one of our businesses to another country north of the border, and we had all kinds of trouble. They can control everything. The systems are in place that if you have one little thing not checked, some checkbox not checked or marked correctly or out of sync, you can't move money around. And you can't take money in your pocket and go across the border, because if they catch you with it, they're going to fine you or and confiscate it. So we have all these controls in this global system connecting a global economy and all this driving the commerce and everything. And look at all the tariffs and everything that's going on in the world right now. Then on top of that, we have a political empire, right? This Babylonian system is going to represent a vast political power, influencing governance and authority worldwide beyond a single city. Babylon is just not a city. It is a system. It's a global system. And then you tie in the spiritual deception and idolatry, and Babylon embraces deception, sorcery, idolatry, shaping beliefs and morals globally. And we saw this with all the Epstein files and all the debauchery and the immorality that came out of that island, and how all the elites from the world, the princes, all the high up globalists, all were in and out of that island, taking part in all this sorcery and idolatry, even to the point where they were cloning babies and humans, and they wanted to use them for different body parts. Maybe even in China, they're doing all this, growing body parts and souls to be able to harvest them later. My friends, Babylon is not merely a place. It is a pattern. It is a system. It is a demonic spirit that rules this earth right now. But thanks be to Yeshua and to Abba the Father, who has called each and every one of us to come out of this system. Let's look at some of the Hebrew meaning for the word Babel. Babel is translated Babylon. So Babel represents a state where clarity is lost and boundaries are blurred, giving rise to confusion and uncertainty. It's a blending of opposites. In Babel, truth merges with falsehood and holiness with corruption, highlighting a mixture of opposing values. And then we have this moral and spiritual ambiguity. This Babel is this blending of spiritual and the morals that shows the danger of mixing purity with idolatry. My friends, Babylon is the system of mixture. Truth mixed with lies, right? We see this all the time. They give us misinformation. It's got a little bit of truth in it, just like the serpent when he deceived Eve in the garden, right? He had a little bit of truth in there, and then he mixed it with lies. We have holiness mixed with corruption. Look at all these churches in the world today, and they all take, we're all one people. They're even anti-Israel. They take the side of the Palestinians, and they have all this holiness mixed with corruption because they get a lot of money from all these globalists. And so they support their ideologies. And we have spirituality mixed with idolatry. We have people who pretend to be holy, priests, and whoever in different denominations, and they're worshiping paganism and idolatry. And it's been like that since the beginning of humanity. Right? There's nothing new under the sun. It's just was hidden for a long time, but now it's coming out, and it's going to come out more and more. Now, let's tie in this rise of digital Babylon, as we've been talking about in our series. So we have this shift in societal influence. We have the society has moved from being shaped by religion and culture to being influenced by digital technology and data-driven platforms. And then we have this impact of digital infrastructure. Today's online platforms shape behaviors and beliefs, and we went through this last week, affecting how individuals interact with information and each other. And then we have the consequences for privacy and connection. Nothing is private anymore. We're so deeply connected everywhere, and these AI tools can now go in and find all the information about us in a few seconds. You could type in your name or whatever in Gemini, in ChatGPT, in Copilot, and Grok, and you're going to come back with everything about you in these systems. Try it. See what information's out there about yourself. My friends, this digital transformation influences privacy, access to information, the ways global communities connect and interact. Everything is interconnected now. In the ancient world, Babylon controlled people through religion, commerce, and culture. In the modern world, Babylon controls the people through data, technology, and digital infrastructure. We can't get away from it, but we can come out of it. It's all around us, but we can come out of it. Now, sorry, my slide's a little cut off here, but let's talk about the characteristics of digital Babylon. You know, we talked about this global surveillance. This digital Babylon features constant information monitoring. And we see that in China. We see that in the UK. We see it everywhere, really, that there's always this monitoring of individuals, and it's through cameras, apps. Constantly, these new data centers are putting together will constantly keep gigabytes and gigabytes of data on each and every human on Earth. And we are building out new data centers at an alarming pace to keep up with this AI infrastructure. It's creating a world where surveillance is ever present and privacy is diminished. In this centralized digital identity, our personal data is controlled by authorities through centralized digital identity, making information easily accessible and tightly regulated, Just as I said, they can find out everything about you in a few seconds, because now we have this AI driven social control. So these AI algorithms are going to shaping our online behavior through social control and algorithmic censorship, influencing what people see and share. We don't know what's real anymore. Remember what I said last week? They can bring up images of anyone, of yourself, and they can put words in your mouth. It's not you speaking. They can make you say whatever you want to say, and people are going to believe it. They can bring up a world leader and make them say something, have it broadcast all over the world, and you think it's real, and it's not real. He's never said it. This is how manipulative this new AI-driven social control is becoming. And then it causes us to have this digital dependency. As technology use increases, digital dependency grows, making societies rely heavily on interconnected digital systems for daily life. As I said before, for the first time in history, we have a global system that can monitor, influence, and control every individual on earth. Now, I want to keep going here because I don't want to run out of time today. So let's look at this Talmudic insight of the final Babylon Empire. And we have the prophecy in the Talmud of this final empire. The sages taught that an oppressive empire would arise before the Messiah's arrival, bringing hardship and spiritual trials. This empire's era is marked by challenges to Jewish faith, our Hebraic faith, and perseverance, testing spiritual strength and resilience. Right? Remember, Yeshua says, here is the faith of the saints. When this stuff comes upon us, our faith is going to be tried, whether we are resilient or not, whether we have the spiritual strength to survive going through these 3.5 years of the tribulation. And it's preparing us for redemption. Enduring these hardships is seen as necessary preparation, paving the way for ultimate redemption and the Messiah's coming. My friends, each of us can get through this if we uplift and encourage and support each other. We can get through this. This is where resilience, perseverance, and resourcefulness is going to come in. If you never listened to my teaching on the 7 laws of success, just Google that or search for that on the Daily Torah channel. And I have a thing there about the principles of making sure that you can be successful and get through this, because we need to be successful. We need to go through this to have our redemption and election sure. There is no easy way out of this. Just like when a woman gives birth to a child, there's no easy way out. You're going to go through the pain, the contractions, and then finally those contractions are going to give birth to a beautiful newborn. Well, it's the same way this world is going to contract. It's going to go into labor, the birth pangs of Jacob, and at the end, the kingdom will be born. But we're going to have to go through a lot of pain to get there. In the Talmud, in the Pesachim 118 verse A, it says, just as the first redemption was from Egypt, so the final redemption will be from a great empire. And that's the Babylonian renewed system that's going to come upon this earth. In the Midrash Tanhuma, in the last days, it says, Israel will be surrounded by a global kingdom, but God will deliver them. Well, that's in Zechariah chapter 14, right? And we know that. And so these prophecies are in there, and it's also outlined in Revelation. The rabbis believed the final empire would be global, powerful, and spiritually corrupt, just like Babylon. Yeshua had given John the words and all the prophets the words, and everybody is in alignment here. about this final Babylonian empire. This is why we need to embrace our Jewish brethren. Even those who are not yet believers of Yeshua, they were given the wisdom to preserve for us today. Now, let's look at the spiritual roots of Babylon. Okay? Rebellion and centralization. Babylon originated as a symbol of rebellion and centralized power, seeking to unify people under a single authority. Then we have the human exaltation. Babylonian culture emphasized human greatness, placing mankind's achievements above divine authority and spiritual guidance. And then we had the occult influence. Occult knowledge was integral to Babylonian practices, influencing their beliefs and daily life with mystical traditions. And then it had the economic domination. That is the fourth root. Babylon pursued economic control, leaving a legacy of influence that shaped commerce and power structures in later civilizations, and it's even affecting us today. My friends, this final Babylon is the same spirit, only now empowered by technology. So we have to be aware, and we see this in the UN, right? We see this everywhere. These four elements, these four roots springing up. We saw it in the opening of the Olympics, right? If you're watching this, just a few weeks ago, with all that satanic rituals that they went through, symbolizing that they have control over the whole world, over all the embryos of the whole world. You know, they had that like embryo-looking thing hanging from the cauldron and all the fire, and then they had the priests dressed up and the altar underneath. And they were just telling us basically that they control the whole world in every embryo, body, and soul that is born into the world. That's the message that they were given during the opening of that Olympics. So this is, we'll tie it in here with the occultic dream of unity, because that's what we saw. This is where it's all heading. This is all a satanic ritual of mysticism that goes back to the days of Enoch, as we talked about in our previous series. And all of that influence has culminated to today with the technology to be able to control and bring it all to life in a very controlling way, that they want to rebuild this Babylonian system. And they want to have it hook, line, and sinker. They want to have the lion's teeth within the world that nobody can escape. So they have this vision of global unity. This occult traditions imagine a unified world, right? Like the UN. Just follow the UN and listen to these people speak and read their documents and their blogs, and you'll know exactly what they're saying and how they are being influenced by this system. Because they want a unified world where humanity is connected through a higher collective consciousness. This all goes into transhumanism, which I talked about in our previous episodes. They want this merging with higher intelligence. These beliefs encourage merging humanity with higher intelligence. They're talking about aliens, and they're talking about cyborgs, and having these neural implants and AI now intertwined and integrated within our brains. They want us to merge with this technology to become higher states of being. It's the next evolution of mankind, because they believe that this is the pathway to transcendence. The occult ideologies regard these themes as pathways, unlocking new collective powers, pathways not only to transcendence, but to transhumanism. My friends, this is the same spirit behind Babel: self-exaltation, self-deification, and most importantly, it is rebellion against the Creator. They want to make man in their own image, not in God's image. And that is Satan's image. This is what Satan wants to do with humanity. He wants to rebuild it. He wants to merge it, make it become cyborgs, that he can control it from birth, from the womb to death, and everything in between. That's why, my friends, we are called as the remnant to be set apart. We have to be faithful amid adversity. My friends, throughout history, faithful individuals stood strong against corrupt and dominant culture, even to the point of death, exemplifying spiritual resilience and commitment. How committed are you right now to God, to his word, to his Torah? If someone's going to come to you now, are you going to be like the Greek or like the Hellenists who succumbed to the Greeks? You know, the Jewish believers, when Greek took over Israel, and they loved the games, right? They loved to be Greek-minded to save their own souls. But many of them perished who did not give in. Which side of the camp are you on, my friends? Will you give in to the Babylonian system? Will you take the mark? Or will you resist and make yourself set apart? What is your spiritual commitment? Remnants such as Noah, Abraham, and Daniel remained committed to their beliefs, regardless of societal pressure or opposition. So again, only you can answer the question, how committed are you? And then we have an enduring legacy. The remnant's perseverance left a legacy of faith. What is your legacy going to be? Is your book going to be, is your name going to be in the book of life and leaving a legacy to those after you as a faithful steward of God? Or will you take your part in the lake of fire where there will be gnashing of teeth and weeping? Will you be inspiring future generations that come after you to remain set apart and true to their convictions? Will you be an example to your children, to your neighbors, to your friends, that you did not give in to the beast system? Only you can answer that, and you may not be able to answer that until the pressure is applied, because that is when true faith comes out. When the pressure is on, then God knows who you really are. My friends, here is the patterns. We have Noah, who was in a corrupt world, right? And he listened to God, and he built the ark. And he preached to those before they went into the ark. We have Abraham in a pagan culture who also preached out. He preached God's words. He listened to God, and he crossed over. He became the first Hebrew, the first Eviv to cross over and to listen to God completely, and to him were given all the promises. Then it was passed down to Israel. We had Israel in Egypt. They remained faithful when Joseph went down, and they all went down into Egypt. They remained faithful because Joseph said that they would be taken out, that God would visit them after a time and bring them up out of Egypt, and they remained faithful, and they did come out. Then you had Daniel in Babylon. Look at what all he had to endure. You know, he did not bow down to the image, and he was thrown into the lion's den. Would you do the same? Or would you bow down to the image that's about to be erected upon the earth? Because he says he's going to make a big image and cause it to speak, and all those who do not worship the image are going to be killed. Are you going to worship that image, or will you pay the price to remain faithful to God? And then you had the early believers in Rome who were persecuted, and they were driven out. And they were persecuted on both sides, from the world, from the Orthodox, from everyone that were persecuting them and driving them out. And many of them were hung, many of them were crucified, many of them were fed to lions, and they had to endure. My friends, the remnant is always called out before judgment, and there will be judgment. And whether we're alive to see it or not remains to be seen. But many of us, I hope and I pray that we will be alive to see everything and see the return of the Messiah coming with great glory. That's always been my prayer, is that I want to see it all. I want to be the generation that sees it all, because there's only going to be one generation. There was one generation when Yeshua walked the earth the first time. And I pray that we are the generation that sees the return of the Messiah to usher in all things and to finally put that beast into the pit where he belongs, that slippery serpent who deceives the whole world, and he will finally be put into the pit, and there will finally be true peace upon this earth. That's the day that we're all looking forward to. The remnant always leaves a distinctive mark. They have obedience to God's commandments. The remnant is recognized by their commitment to following God's commandments with steadfast faith and sincerity. They have a loyalty to Yeshua. Their unwavering faith in Yeshua is a defining trait, reflecting their devotion to the teachings of the Messiah. I want to say right now that we have, as Messianic believers and Hebraic roots members, we need to stop the division about calendars and sacred names and all the nonsense that divides us. We have to be unified and loyal to the mission of going out and creating disciples and spreading the gospel throughout the world, and not devouring in each other. Because we need to show lives that have devotion. They showcase a distinctive harmony of Torah faithfulness and the testimony of Yeshua. In Revelation 12:17, it says, those who keep the commandments of God and hold the testimony of Yeshua. Do you know what the commandments of God are? And do you know what the testimony of Yeshua is? That's another deep dive that I just don't have time to go into right now. But think about it. Meditate on that, because I think the answer is not what you think it is. So what does the meaning of coming out mean? Let's go over this in our time remaining. We have about less than 20 minutes here, but I think we can get through it all. Number one, we need to come out of Babylon spiritually. This calls for spiritual separation. Coming out means choosing to distance oneself from influences or systems contrary to one's spiritual beliefs. We have to have this shift in allegiance. It emphasized moving away from worldly values, such as maybe the MAGA movement or different movements that we think that we're going to bring peace upon the earth when there's not going to be any peace. And we have to align ourselves with spiritual truth and higher principles, godly principles, heavenly principles. We have to have a mindset transformation. Coming out is about changing one's mindset and loyalty rather than a physical relocation. Many of us, we think we're going to go get an RV and go live in the woods and live off the land. Let me tell you, you're going to last about 30 days doing that, and then you're going to wander around wondering where you're going to get food from. No, we need to have a different mindset and loyalty. Prepare some, but we need to be able to rely on God to supply our every need, and He will. Number two, we need to come out of Babylon morally. We need to be upholding our core values. Staying true to moral standards means not compromising when faced with conflicting values or external pressure. We need to resist corrupt influences. We need to be making conscious choices to avoid influences that threaten our integrity and helps prevent ethical mixture and corruption. And we have to live with clarity. Moral clarity creates a strong foundation for growth and trustworthy relationships with others. Refuse to compromise, refuse to mix, and refuse corruption. We need to be coming out of Babylon economically. This is the hard part for us. We have to reduce our financial dependency. We have to lower reliance on debt and large institutions to decrease our vulnerability and increase personal control over our finances. Have a supply of gold, silver, and cash on hand so that you can barter with and be able to live in a cashless society. Because they're going to make everything digital, and then you're going to be on the system, and then they're going to be able to control you. We need to cultivate self-sufficiency. Develop practical skills like how to garden, how to grow food, how to hunt, how to clean a deer, how to fish, how to clean fish. Learn how to be self-sufficient. Learn about edible herbs. Learn about how to be self-sufficient. Support local businesses like your local farmers markets so that when times come, you can go and barter and they'll be able to help you because there's many like-minded believers who have farms. They have hens and eggs and goats and different foods. And we're going to be able to go and barter and hopefully support and supply each other's needs. So we have to have this attitude of being self-reliant, but we don't need to know everything because we just need to make the connections. And as believers, we need to be supporting and uplifting one another. And we just need to be prioritizing saving, avoid unnecessary loans, and make deliberate choices now to get out of debt and to ensure personal and community economic stability. We need to detach from the systems of control, of debt, and dependency wherever possible. And then we need to come out of Babylon ideologically. We need to reject Babylon's narratives. We need to refuse culture-shaped definitions of truth, normalcy, and morality. We need to resist propaganda and conformity. We need to test every message against scripture, not consensus or permission. And we need to see through all the digital illusions, discern appearance from reality. Knowledge without wisdom is deception. So we need to ask God for wisdom and discernment. We need to have visions from heaven, not of this age. We need to adopt a kingdom world view in every part of our lives. And then we need to come out of Babylon prophetically. We need to be rejecting worldly influences. Believers are urged to resist practices and beliefs that conflict with God's teachings, that conflict with Torah, embracing spiritual values instead. We need to know the Torah. If you don't listen to my daily Torah podcast, subscribe to it. I go through the Torah, the half Torah, and the Brit Hadashah every day. They're just like 15-minute segments. Look for the daily Torah. It's on the daily Torah channel. Subscribe. And I go through every parashah every day. And we need to be prioritizing these spiritual values. We need to be aligning with God's kingdom. And that means placing spiritual priorities above material pursuits. Stop focusing on getting everything, getting rich, getting the new car, getting the new house, getting this, getting that. We need to be focusing on faith and holiness. And we need to be deepening our relationship with God. Living in obedience and holiness fosters a closer relationship with God and supports a meaningful spiritual life. We need to align with God's kingdoms, my friends, and not the world's. Now, I'm going to get into this deeper next week, but I'm going to briefly go through the fall of Babylon today. We're going to have this dramatic collapse of Babylon, right? The final fall, there's going to be a sudden destruction of this global system, showing the vulnerability of worldly power and wealth. We're going to have the lamentation of the merchants, as it says in Revelation 18 and 19. The merchants and the leaders are going to mourn the rapid economic downfall, highlighting the loss of luxury and prosperity. That's the worldly system. They're the ones who want all this luxury and prosperity. And then Revelation 18 emphasizes the victory of justice over corruption, reminding us of the impermanence of material riches. Remember, Yeshua says, where your treasure is or where your heart is, that's where your treasure will be. So is your heart on worldly pursuits or godly pursuits? And part of this fall of Babylon is going to be this political upheaval. The power structures fracture and destabilize. Kings and rulers are going to lose control and influence. It's just starting to happen now with all this Epstein nonsense. There's going to be authority without righteousness cannot stand. and Babylon's alliances dissolve under pressure. Okay, we think we're in this lull right now, but Babylon is going to resurface and it's going to be stronger. It's going to be iron mixed with clay, and it's going to eventually collapse under its own weight. When God returns, before he returns, going through the judgments of God, we're going to have spiritual exposure. Deception is uncovered, and we see some of that now. We're getting glimpses of this now. The true nature of the system is going to be revealed. We see that now. Sorcery, corruption, and rebellion are laid bare. We're seeing that now. Darkness cannot survive the light of judgment. But things are going to get darker before they get more light. But we're seeing glimpses of it right now. God is showing us the cracks. He's just opening up the blinds just a little bit for us to see what's going on behind the scenes. And when God returns, before Messiah returns, and the Father sends Messiah here, and he places judgment upon the whole Babylonian system, there's going to be global mourning. And you can read this in Revelation 18 and 19. And the world is going to grieve what it's lost, and merchants and leaders and nations are going to lament Babylon. There's going to be sorrow because they lost everything, but no repentance. Heaven and the remnant respond very differently, which you can read about in Revelation 19. And I'm going to go through this in next week's part 5. I'm just giving you a little prelude here. And then there's going to be divine judgment. Babylon falls by the hand of God. Judgment is righteous, final, and deserved. Justice answers centuries of corruption. And God is going to finally vindicate his people and his name. The world will mourn Babylon, but we as the remnant will rejoice. Amen? Because this is the Messianic hope unveiled. This is why we are here. This is why we are the remnant. And now it's time for us to rise up and to be doing the work of Messiah and to preparing for these days. We have to have this realization of the Messianic hope. After the fall of Babylon, the long-awaited hope is fulfilled as the new era begins and peace emerges. But are you encapsulating that now in your life? Are you proclaiming that so that other people can come in and be protected and come into the Messianic hope and be part of the first fruits of Messiah? Are we holding God's Messiah's return back, God sending his son back because we are not proclaiming the word and there's not enough people yet ready to usher in as the first fruits of the kingdom? There's going to be this establishment of divine rule. The Messiah's return is going to usher in a just and righteous rule over all nations, bringing unity and restoration. We know that's coming. We want that now, but it's not here yet. What are we doing to help proclaim this message of hope? And finally, the faithful will be vindicated. We as faithful stewards of Messiah Yeshua will be vindicated. And the nations will be judged. The nonsense and the debauchery and the evil that you see on the earth today will be judged. And the divine promises will be fulfilled for all believers in this new age to come, in the millennium kingdom. My friends, the call to come out is not a call to escape. You're not going to go into the woods to escape. It is a call to prepare for the return of the King, and that starts with each and every one of us individually and collectively. So let's unveil the digital Babylon that's all around us right now. The digital Babylonian system is reshaping society. It's influencing cultural and spiritual perceptions in profound ways today. We have this prophetic call for separation. God is calling us to come out of her, from this digital Babylon, highlighting the importance of maintaining a distinct identity as a spiritual remnant. And then we have this spiritual convergence that's happening. I believe that many of the groups are going to finally align and be at one. We're going to have this convergence. And we see it in the scriptures. We see it in the Hebrew language. We see it in Talmudic wisdom and modern technology. They blend to create a unified spiritual narrative with deep connections. So as people of God, we need to embrace each other and stop the divisive nature. And we need to be unified in our walk with Messiah. That was one of the reasons I started this podcast, because I saw all the division. We need to be unified, my friends, as one people, because this is our journey of faith. You know, this series that I'm talking about, it connects prophetic messages from ancient texts to modern times, highlighting continuity in spiritual revelations. It is a call to holiness. Through this series, one truth remains. Through everything that's going on in the world today, one truth remains. God is calling his people to stand apart, to walk in holiness, because it is preparing us and the world for Yeshua's return. We need to encourage readiness and anticipation for the promised return, emphasizing urgency and hope. So, my friends, in this episode, part 4, we explored the rise of the digital Babylonian system. We discussed the prophetic call to come out and the identity of the remnant in the last days. We saw how scripture, Hebrew language, Talmudic insight, and modern technology converge into a single narrative. Now, next week in episode 5 of this series, we will continue the series with Fallen is Babylon the Great. This is the episode where the story reaches its climax. You don't want to miss this episode. Until then, my friends, walk in discernment. Stay grounded in Torah. And most importantly, my friends, keep your eyes on Yeshua. If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb Show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lambnetwork.tv website. I'm Jeffrey Clark. Thank you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.